All right, today we're going to take a journey into the heart of one of the world's most ancient and, honestly, most unique forms of Christian worship, the Ethiopian Kidasi. It's a liturgy that holds these incredible echoes of millennia-old traditions, and it connects us to a story that might just change how you think about the history of faith itself. So, to really dive in, let me start with a question for you. What if a Christian church, one that's alive and well today, held the secrets of Solomon's temple? I know, it sounds pretty incredible, right? But that very idea is right at the heart of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. Okay, so where do we even begin to understand a tradition this deep? Well, we're going to focus on the Kudasi. That's the central act of worship for the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, a faith whose ancient practices are often, a bit of a mystery to the outside world. What makes this church so fascinating is its kind of dual identity. Its origins are this amazing blend of two ancient streams. The whole fabric of their faith is interwoven with both a really deep pre-Christian Hebrew heritage and, of course, the traditions of Eastern Christianity. And that combination has created something, well, something you just won't find anywhere else. Okay, let's dig into that connection, because this is where things get really interesting. We're going to focus on what is, without a doubt, the church's most distinctive feature, its profound and living link to ancient Israel, a connection that goes back thousands of years. It all goes back to this foundational story, told in the Ethiopian epic called the Kebra. As you can see here, around 1000 BC, the famous Queen Makeda of Sheba travels to Jerusalem to visit King Solomon. They have a son, Menelik I, and years later, when he goes to visit his father, he brings the most sacred object in all of Judaism, the Ark of the Covenant, back home with him to Ethiopia. And believe it or not, the legacy of that incredible journey is still alive today. While the original Ark is believed to be in a chapel in Aksum, every single Ethiopian Orthodox church on the planet has something called a tabat. It's a consecrated replica of the Ark. It sits on the altar, and it is the absolute center, the focal point of all worship. You won't find this anywhere else in Christianity. It's just wow. But the connection doesn't stop there, not by a long shot. The church has faithfully held on to other Hebraic traditions for thousands of years. The call and response singing style, that comes directly from ancient Hebrew liturgy. They have an order of cantors called the dipteras, whose role is a lot like the ancient Levites from the Old Testament. And on top of that, many purification and dietary customs from Leviticus are still observed by the faithful today. So we've got this mind-blowing historical backdrop, right? Now let's zoom in on the heart of the worship itself, the divine liturgy, which they call the Kudasi. What is it really, and what does it mean to the people who practice it? The word Kidasi itself tells you a lot. It comes from a root word that means to hallow or to sanctify. So right away you know this isn't just a church service. It's understood as a divine encounter. It's not meant to be entertainment. It's an act that requires preparation, reverence, and a mindset of offering something, not just showing up to receive. You can basically think of the service in two main parts. It kicks off with the preparatory service. This is a whole series of prayers, psalms, and readings that are designed to prepare both the people and the elements, the bread and wine. And all of that builds up to the anaphora. This is the spiritual climax, the main event. It's the great Eucharistic prayer where the elements are consecrated. And here's something else that's just incredible about this tradition. Over the centuries, a lot of ancient churches lost different versions of their prayers, but the Ethiopian church has preserved 14 unique anaphoras. Just think about that. That's an unbelievable treasure of ancient Christian prayers, making the church a kind of living library of early worship. So we've talked about the history, the structure, but what does it feel like? What do you see and hear if you're there? The Kiridasi is a totally immersive sensory experience. It's just rich with ancient music, sacred movement, and really profound symbolism. Okay, so there are two main groups leading the worship, and it's a really interesting distinction. You've got your ordained ministers, the priests and deacons, and they're the ones who officiate the main liturgy. But then you also have the debteras, who we mentioned before. They're the cantors, and they're responsible for performing this incredibly complex and ancient system of chants that are so central to the whole service.
And where does all this amazing music come from? Well, the tradition behind it is just beautiful. It's held that the entire system of chant was composed way back in the 6th century by a man named Saint Yared, who is believed to have received it all through divine inspiration. So the melodies you'd hear today are a direct link back to the music of the early church.
Even the church building itself is telling a story. Its traditional three-part layout is a direct model of Solomon's temple. There is an outer area for the cantors, a holy place where people receive communion, and then finally, the Makdas, or the Holy of Holies. That's where the Tabat rests, and only priests can go in there. It's also why worshippers take off their shoes before entering. It echoes God's command to Moses at the burning bush. It's all connected. So as we start to wrap this up, I want you to just think about the sheer continuity we've just seen. This isn't some historical reenactment people put on. This is an ancient faith. It's a living, breathing, and for the most part, unchanged legacy. There's a quote that just perfectly sums this all up. The idea that less change has taken place in the Ethiopian liturgy than in any other Christian tradition, East or West. I mean, that's staggering. It means this isn't just ancient. It's a living window into the worship of the early church, a tradition that has fiercely and beautifully guarded its heritage. And in the end, everything we've talked about, the history, the music, the prayers, the layout of the church, it all builds to this one single moment, the Eucharist. For believers, this is the absolute climax of the Q2C. It's not just a symbol. It's an intimate, real communion with Christ, and for them, the source of grace and the remission of sins. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? In our world of constant updates and revisions and reinventions, what can an ancient, unbroken tradition like the Q2C teach us about the nature of faith, the meaning of worship, and the incredible power of just steadfast continuity? It's definitely something worth thinking about.